manager and those to return, let me say to those in attendance, if you want to speak on the millage rate and the tax levy, there's a pad right here at the corner of the right where the attorney is right now. Please come and sign. All right, please come and sign up for those who want to speak. You must sign up. As soon as the manager gets back in here, we're gonna be ready to go. All right. Tell the manager and them out there, I said, come on.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Silence is commanded by this honorable commission. All those having business draw near.
Thank you. Please bow your heads with me. Most holy and everlasting Father, our God, in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ, and by his grace, we thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you that you have allowed us to gather to take care of business here at Chatham County, and bless us with the presence of your Holy Spirit. For this we pray in the name of Jesus, and all who said amen. Let us pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Again, let me invite those of you who are sitting in the audience to come up here by the manager. There's a pad on the railing there that you need to sign up. Those who want to speak as we go through this process. And so now may I have a motion from the commissioners to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the hearing.
Second.
Properly motion and second that we open the public hearing. Are you ready for the question? Please cast your votes. All right, thank you. We're getting ready now for the public hearing, and let me say, due to illness, Commissioner Buford was here this morning, but she took ill, so she's not gonna be here with us. She needed to go to the physician to see about herself, all right? So, do I need a motion to excuse her? Or we can just go, okay, we so moved. Properly motion and second that we excuse Commissioner Buford. Are you ready for the question? Please cast your votes. All right, good. Ladies and gentlemen, this hearing is being held in compliance with state law. The Chatham County Board of Commissioners have announced publicly its intention to increase the property taxes as it levies this year by 3.36% over the rollback millage rate for general maintenance and operation taxes, by 48.99% over the rollback millage rate for the special service district tax, by 3.43% over the rollback millage rate for Chatham Area Transit Authority. This gives the Board of Commissioners the option of adopting the millage rate recommended to balance the proposed budget. The purpose of this hearing is to provide members of the public the opportunity to comment. The advertised millage rate for the general fund is 10.518 mils, which is 0.342 mils higher than the calculated rollback millage of 10.176. The advertised millage rate for the special service district is 6.502 mils, which is 2.138 mils higher than the calculated rollback millage rate of 4.2 364. The advertised millage rate for the Chatham Area Transit Authority is 1.056 mills, which is 0.035 mills higher than the calculated rollback millage rate of 1.021. A list is provided at the front of the room for you to record your name, address, as well as the group or organization you represent, if any. This will allow us to document that public input was solicited. We ask that you be brief and concise in your remarks, since there may be a number of people that may wish to speak. We want everyone to have an equal chance to be heard. With that having been said, Mr. Manager, do you have a list?
Yes, sir.
Okay, call you first.
The first one is Mike Lindsay.
Please state your name and address so that we get it correctly on the records.
Of course. My name is Michael Lindsay. I'm at 2 Coggeshall Drive in unincorporated Chatham. Chairman Ellis, thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a question around the huge increase in the mill rate for the special district. 48% or 50% rounded up is gigantic for any line item and any budget. So I came here to learn to understand what the purpose for that increase is, and also to express serious concern about the huge increase that represents.
Right. Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. The increase in the special service district is to replace the fire fee that had been assessed by the county.
And is there more explanation in terms of what the cost of that is?
Yes, sir. And it doesn't totally fund the fire department, but the value of a mill in the special service district is approximately $7 million. The fire department budget is about a little over $21 million. So the 2 mill increase generates about a little $14 million.
Okay. My original understanding when the fire district was being created and moved to the county was that was actually going to be a net savings for taxpayers. So how is that? An average home in my community, this could be $750 to $1,000 more a year in property taxes.
Well, two things. And based on my memory, we never said that when the county took on the fire department, it would be a savings. I distinctly remember telling this commission when they made that decision that it wasn't going to be a cost savings. It was going to actually cost us more because of the way the fire department was operating and their inability to collect and fund themselves. So I think this commission understood that once we took over the fire department, it was going to cost us more. Because we can no longer do a fee and had to be a tax, we looked at a number of different options. So in our calculation, based on everything we looked at, most people, about 80% of the parcels in the unincorporated area, it's cheaper for them to have that 2 mill tax than to pay a fee.
I'd still respectfully request that the commission look at the base cost of this, because that single increase in 1 year looks to borderline unacceptable. So that's my concern with it. I'd encourage you to go back and look at those costs. Perhaps some of that could be coming out of the normal budget for the county, not all in one place, all in one mill area. That's going to be quite a burden, I think, on the unincorporated citizens. That's my input.
All right, let me say this to you now. It cannot come out the M&O budget, all right? It's a service that we render only to the unincorporated areas. So therefore, if we were to take monies from or to put it in the M&O, which is the regular operation and maintenance budget, then we'd have to do the whole county, all right? But we're only going to do the unincorporated area.
So the city is excluded from
The city is excluded from it, yeah, because they provide their own fire service. And this is only for fire, all right? It's only for the fire service that we're providing for the unincorporated area.
And there's no alternative to reduce this cost? Because that's a gigantic
Well,
increase in 1 year.
we've looked at,
We received these services
right.
well over the last several years. Why in 1 year is this going up so dramatically?
Well, because
I heard your answer respectfully.
because before we did not own the fire department. it was, what we were doing was supplementing the fire service, and it was given out to a third party, all right, which wasn't working, all right? What, somewhere around 70% of the people who was receiving the service were not paying for the service? 31%. 31%?
Yeah.
All right. And so we first tried to help them by doing collections for them. We moved collections up from in the 60 percentile to the 90 percentile, but it still was not enough funds to carry. Just like the manager is telling you, even the 2%, 2 mills raise, all right, will not cover what the fire service costs. So therefore, we are, we've looked at how much we could go by. Now, I also want to say this to no one in the unincorporated area should have a fire bill or fire fee or anything. If you do, you need to turn it into the county, all right, by getting it to the manager. If you've got one from 2023 or 2024, 20, say it again?
24, 25.
24, 25. If you got a fire bill from there, all right, you need to turn it in, because this year we've had enough in reserves till we covering that cost this time around, so that we could get all the factors we need to factor in where we could be. And one of the things, there were two things that came out of the state legislature last year and this year that affect everything we're doing, and that was House Bill, what's the first one?
581.
581, all right, and then House Bill 92, all right, which made the Board of Assessors and those have to adjust all costs and things that they were doing. So all of it's gathered around each other, okay, but now, from what information we have that have been provided for us, is 80 or 81% of the unincorporated area who will not see a increase when they do get a bill.
It's approximately 80% of the property owners, the increase in the tax was lower than what they were paying in the fee.
What they were paying in the fee, okay? And so,
Has that been summarized somewhere so that a property owner can find out what that difference is?
Yes, if you will get us your information, then I'll get staff to send that to you.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
all right, and you already said your name and address, so we have it. Yeah, we'll make sure.
Sure. All right, thank you very much.
Other thing, Mr. Chairman, is
Yes.
there's a large part of our digest that will now be exempt because it's a tax.
Right,
Whereas under the fee scheme, they were contributing funds that far exceeded what we had been collecting before that. And we got the collection rate down from 69% up to about 98%. But it was still short, and you're replacing fire engines that cost $1 million apiece. And you're replacing fire stations. You know, we'd like to locate one out in Berwick. Find me a piece of property that costs less than $1 million.
okay. Yes, sir. Commissioner Whiteley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was your name again, sir?
Michael Lindsay?
Mr. Lindsay. So thank you for your comments, and I definitely understand the concern. A lot of my constituents share that same concern. I do want to, you asked for some more of a detail as to why.
Yes.
To generally summarize it from my understanding, personnel cost, deferred maintenance, and capital improvements probably take up the bulk of that. Personnel costs, and that when Chatham Emergency Services was operating it, they had volunteer firefighting force. So paying for that is a little bit different because they're volunteering. But for us as a municipal fire department, we have different standards that we need to meet. So not only are we paying them, they're meeting our benefit package as well. When it comes to deferred maintenance, I do understand that the status quo was comfortable for a lot. You're paying $200 a month, $200 a year, some even less, to have fire service. But the reason that Chatham Emergency came to us, because they knew that model was unsustainable, and they were going to have to come in, as my kids say, hit you over the head at some point, because a lot of the deferred maintenance and other costs that they were going to have, it was coming. And so they knew that the model that they were operating under, especially considering that they had such a low pay rate, only 70% of the people were actually paying, or collection rate, excuse me. That's why they came to us. So I definitely understand the concern. And to be honest, for me, that was one of my first things dealing with as a newly elected commissioner. I would have wished to have to worry about parks or speed bumps than whether or not we start a fire department. But one thing I can say about my colleagues, this commission, we do not take your safety lightly. And you see us here being frank with you, being upfront with you, biting the bullet because your safety is more important. I'd rather, take the steps to make sure that you have a functioning fire department than for you to read on the news from our friends here that a third party went bankrupt and said we're out, because then what will we do? So definitely I understand the concern. I appreciate it, and I want you and your neighbors to know that we've looked at everything we can. Now, I do understand that some of my colleagues have presented some options for us to be creative when it comes to M&O and SSD budget, which is is further down the line. I will say that, but we don't want to do this increase more than you want to have it. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, I appreciate the extra explanation as well, and the support. I really respect the fire department and the people that are in it. They support our lives every day. So there's no question about the importance of the service. The question is the cost and perhaps the transition, because as you're talking about the transition from a volunteer force to a full-time force, obviously is going to cost some money. Mm-hmm. If that was not well thought through, then maybe we need to think about that differently, how to handle the costs.
Well, and so to that, as it relates to costs, just to offer some comparison. Now, the number I'm going to quote is from City of Savannah's budget maybe 2 years ago for their fire department. Now, let me back up. Unincorporated Chatham is pretty much the second largest city, if you will, within Chatham County, right? And if you read our budget, as our manager said, the budget's about $21 million. With City of Savannah, there's about 30-something million a couple years ago. So again, to a tip of the hat to Chatham Emergency Services, at one point their budget was 10 million. When we took over, I think it was like 9 and change when we stepped in and helped with collections. So they were operating on a shoestring budget, but again, some of those deferred maintenance was how they did that. Volunteers, large volunteer corps, minimal training, and stuff like that. That was how they were able to keep up with that and still give us a top quality organization, because our ISO, as you may be aware of with your insurance, still remain pretty low and competitive. So now here we are, when you talk about the costs are going up for everything. I mean, let's not talk about eggs and
I
stuff.
expected a 4% increase like the other line items,
But not like a 40%. I totally understand that. But again, this is something that's incredibly serious, and we've got to put our best foot forward, because if we don't do it now, we're going to wish we did later.
Okay, I appreciate the serious work that's been done on this. Obviously, it's still encourage more cost savings to get us to a better outcome. But thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Commissioner Kicklighter.
Oh,
Thank you,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman. I will tell you, as far as about volunteers, back when I was mayor in Garden City, that was 98, 99, we had a volunteer fire department there, and we had a volunteer recreation department. And that's no longer the case in Garden City. They have a paid fire department, paid rec department. Unfortunately, those good old days of volunteers have kind of gone away. And Southside Fire, they basically had very few volunteers towards the end. They did have a group out, I guess, on Skidaway Island that was still technically signed up, but what happened was the county tried to make sure, following, I think, insurance recommendations, that they have a certain amount of training intact. So the gentleman, which I respect, has state regulation, that they have a certain amount of training, and the gentleman did not want to, I believe, get that additional training to continue, so they quit. So that was the end there totally, although it had pretty much ended a long time ago even with them. But I'll tell you this, that in my 20-whatever years I've been here now, that was probably the worst thing that happened here, was waking up one day and hearing that the volunteer, not the volunteer, but the Southside Fire Department, that named themselves Chatham County Fire, that they were gonna virtually bankrupt if we didn't do something. And that was because with the fees they were sending out, I believe 70 or 80% of the people would pay what they sent, but then the other 20 or 30% wouldn't pay it. So they couldn't even collect the money they needed to run on their shoestring budget that they already had. And that was something that nobody wanted to face, because that was a lose-lose. And we were told in the beginning that it was gonna cost more money no matter basically what took place there. We tried one direction to start with, and I pushed it, and I feel bad about it. But I thought, in my mind, I thought the fair way to do this is to not punish someone for where they live. I thought it cost a certain amount of money to put out a fire for a certain amount of square feet. If you got a 2,000 square foot mobile home sitting on the river, it should cost the same to put it out as it would a mobile home sitting somewhere else in the county that's not on that type of land. So that's why I never wanted to go the tax route to start with. I thought we can just do it per square feet. But what wound up happening there is you had people in that situation that really couldn't afford it, paying a really hefty price, and then you had other people that could afford that they were paying that, you know, lower
Fixed price
price too. So it really wasn't fair like I thought it was gonna be. It wasn't a good way. All right, so then we realized that we can no longer go that route even, that we have to take over the whole thing or it's gonna go under. We couldn't just send out the bills with our name on it, because people really didn't have to pay that way either. So at that point, and with all due respect for my colleagues here, Commissioner Farrell and myself, we differ in our opinion. We're of the opinion with you that we do not have to have this tax increase. Commissioner Farrell and myself presented ways, multiple ways, that we believe that the fee, the cost could have been absorbed into the budget over a period of time, staggering it in and offsetting it, not with direct money specified for fire, because you may have some legal issues there or may not, but there's definitely overlap with both of our budgets where the M&O pulls from the SSD into it's only fair to give back. And I'll give you an example of that. There's many roads that all of these cities has annexed, and they leave the roads for you guys living in the unincorporated areas. Y'all pay for everything that we hear is a Chatham County road. That's your road, you people living in the unincorporated areas of Chatham County. And when they leave those roads for Chatham County, they're leaving it for you to pay for. So that money could come in and offset money in the SSD Special Service District. It could offset. So we presented this in a way that showed that we could absorb it without harming and without increasing taxes in the M&O and without increasing taxes in the SSD. And
That's a very interesting solution. Why was it not accepted?
I couldn't tell you. We tried hard, but they utilized part of our suggestion. Your taxes would be going up higher right now if approved, but they did take our recommendation and absorb some of the costs by shifting monies out of the M&O over. So,
We didn't either.
you know, and legally, if they can do that, they could have shifted it all over. So I'll be voting no for the tax increase, but I will tell you, this whole group is in one hell of a position, because we can't let the thing fail.
No,
You have to have the fire
It's very important for the
service.
government to provide these
Yeah,
services.
and-
And I wholly support that and understand it. My request is to do that in a responsible way, and perhaps with a better transition plan from the disaster that I'm hearing about that almost happened, that thankfully you acted and prevented it, which is great.
Yeah.
But now, how can we manage that to a solution that is, easier on the pocketbook for a lot of people?
And hopefully, while we're around, we're gonna keep pushing the nudge more over and hopefully get it back down here shortly if this group decides to approve it. So that's my hope for it.
Right, thank you.
Right. Commissioner Farrell?
Yeah, just to explain a little bit more about that concept, knowing that this day was coming a couple of years ago, I looked into, how, look deeper into the budget. So we were doing indirect cost and pulling money out of the SSD and bringing it over to the M&O, and it had gone up. Years ago, it was less than $1 million, and it got up to like $4 million. So I never felt like that was a fair way to treat the SSD. So that did get straightened out, and I congratulate all the staff and colleagues that approved that part. So that doesn't happen anymore. So that keeps more money for SSD. But what I found most interesting was I'm very involved with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia, who is the advocacy group for all the counties, mainly to the state legislature. And I took this problem to them, and what they said was, I said, are there any other things in the M&O that the SSD fund is paying for that's unnecessary and not needed? So for instance, like police, that would definitely have to be raised in the SSD. Fire department has to be raised in the SSD. However, they said, without any doubt, we are the only county in the state of Georgia that uses SSD money for county roads and drainage. I said, well, there's your low-hanging fruit right there. Put the county roads, like every other county, all the other 158 counties in Georgia, into the M&O budget. And then you free up money that was going out of the SSD for roads, and you put it towards the fire. And then you look for other savings, because we got great finance staff. We got a whole wall full of accolades on how good they are about finding money and balancing budgets and that sort of thing. And I think between those two things, the indirect cost and the recommendation from ACCG that we move one very large pot of expenses over to the other budget, which you would logically think if it was tit for tat, then you'd have to raise taxes and then no. But the fact of the matter is, over the last couple of years, we've had extraordinary digest growth because we're an extraordinarily prosperous county. We're the envy of 100 other counties in this state easily, in that we've got so much business going on and so much prosperity that our tax digest, even though the land mass stays the same, the improvements and different things, it grows. And with a larger tax digest, you don't have to raise millage to raise more money. And coupled with the fact that we're having a lot of difficulty staffing to the levels that we would like to staff departments like the sheriff's department and all these different departments that we're liable to and required by state mandate to fund. So there's some wiggle room in there, and there's really good funding, but somehow you got to pull all that together, and that hasn't been done for various reasons, and that's kind of where we are. And
That
now
sounds like
we're
there's
here
another
today.
opportunity there. From a principal viewpoint, if what goes into the special services department only applies to like fire and police, then other items that could be contributing to the county-wide responsibility would make sense from a principal viewpoint to keep that what it should be and everything else in the main operating lines.
Correct.
So that makes sense to me, and it wouldn't make sense if you're just moving pots around. That doesn't help anybody. But from a principal viewpoint, to see where the costs really are and what they really are, that would be consistent.
Yep.
So I like that solution. I'd encourage the board to consider it again.
Right. There were some technical hurdles that have not been hurdled, if you will. And so here we are on crunch time. And out comes the large millage increase for the unincorporated
I think a lot of my neighbors
property owners.
would like you to take some extra time and see if this can be further reduced. But again, I thank you very much for the time and especially for the heartfelt explanations. It's very helpful to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Unless there's somebody else that'd like to.
Let me go to
Sir,
Commissioner Noel.
Yeah.
yes, just a few, clarity on a few items. As the former fire chief, prior to the merger over to the county, in 2021, there were 105 paid staff and about 50 volunteers. And that changed every month, but that was
In all groups?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Right, at peak times, we had 75, but 50 was our number that we could pretty much rely on. We now have 146 budgeted firefighters. We still have 35 vacancies, but we have those volunteers, we've now brought the staffing level up to that with a full-time staff. And just for a little more clarity, the training for the firefighters, volunteer versus paid, there were workarounds. And that was not the determining, at least that's not what I was told, that was not the determining factor in more or less the reason that the volunteers are not here anymore. It was more of a liability issue for the county. We just, as a board, this was prior to me, but saw that it just wasn't smart to have all of that liability out here with volunteers responding in their personal vehicles and all those other items. So I just wanted to clarify that. And something that Commissioner Kicklighter touched on, the fire department is a service provider, and you know, he's correct that a 2,000 square foot house in this neighborhood is going to be probably the same over here at another neighborhood. But there are some factors, you know, the neighborhood quality of construction. But what many people forget is that the fire department, along with the police department, there's a cost of readiness. This is what we need should this happen. If we could have a fire station show up an hour before a fire and just man it for that, we could save a ton of money, but the cost of readiness is what blows those essential services costs through the roof. And the county manager.
That readiness is really appreciated.
Doing.
That readiness is very much
And
appreciated.
I understand where you're coming
Yeah,
from,
yeah.
and I know that, and everybody wants that same cost of that readiness
Sure.
available. But I just wanted you to be aware that there were a few little caveats there, but we want the citizens to be the most protected they can be at the most economical cost. And trust me when I tell you, I'm watching every line item. But there were a need for more apparatus, you know. We were 2 ladder trucks down. They're $1.5 million. And ICE only allows you to keep them for a certain period of time. And that changes every 5 years. But, you know, you got 10 years out of it. And then pumper trucks the cost is across the nation is for fire services doubled in the last 10 years at least. And it's all of that cost with the personnel, which is essential, and then the apparatus.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, and let me just wind up by saying this. We brought in, as Commissioner Farrell said, we brought in the folks from ACCG. We also brought in the folks from the municipal organizations, all right, to bring their experts in. And anything that we could move from the M&O over to cover for the fire service that we have to provide for the SSD, we did. But he also said there are still some legal hurdles we have not been able to get past. So in the budget that you see now, anything that could come and be paid for out the M&O, we moved it all over, okay? But those where we had hurdles and those, I don't know exactly if you can do that. They might have this problem, they might have that problem, all right? We're still working on how to get past that hurdle, okay? And so the recommended 2% not percent.
2 mils.
2 mil increase. I don't know why I like to say percent, but that's where we discover we could go, all right, and not make this outrageous. And when it was proposed and when staff came back and looked at the total cost for everybody, and 80% of those who are living in SSD will have a decrease rather than an increase, then we said, well, that's where we need to go this time around, all right? But believe me, we are still working
Good.
to see how we can do this more effectively. But again, the major cost for this time around is personnel and equipment, all right? And the equipment is just not the truck, because you can buy the truck, but then you got to get everything else that go on the truck.
Of course.
All right, so that, and then we want to make sure that the folks that we are sending to answer fire calls are certified and trained, because I would hate to have to be the one who sent someone unready into a fire and then something tragic happened.
Safety
Going to explain. So the liability part is where we came in, and I'm gonna say this: transitioning to owning the fire department by this commission is still a work in progress, all right? And I'm not gonna say we're not so hardcore to you gotta do it this way, all right? We're learning as we go. We're being taught how as we go. We're bringing in experts, and we're bringing in folks to help us look at how we could offer the service, all right, through the tax method. Now, when we were using Southside, we could do a fee. But now, because the county owns the fire department, it is a department within our, under our umbrella, we can't do a fee, so we have to do the tax, okay? But rest assured that we are trying to find ways that we can do it better, but meet. Even like you said, the 2 mil increase will not get us the $21 million that we need, all right? So we do have some monies that we use out of reserves and other ways, even some of the monies that may come as far as earned income is concerned that we could use. We're using all those methods and all those mode of operation to get you the best service there is available to you at a very economical price. All right.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
I came to learn, and I did learn. I appreciate
Okay.
that, and I also encourage you to keep those pencils sharpened and look for other options.
That's why I don't use an ink pen.
I use pencil too. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir. All right. Next,
Yes, Hope Bellinger.
please state your name and things in case he didn't.
Hope,
Address.
sorry, it's Hope Belanger, and I live at 6 Magnolia Crossing, which is on Skidaway Island.
Okay.
And my primary question is, you keep using the term 2 mil, which is great. We're hearing it translated at a 48.99% tax increase. And my question as an underlying tax increase is there an associated tax increase for incorporated Chatham County that is also absorbing some of these other SSD, meaning fire, costs that were previously provided by volunteers? And is there a way of, I don't want to use, I hate the word, I dislike the word special assessment because that encourages a whole other thought process. But is there a way of doing it in smaller bites than 48.9% this year?
That goes to the man.
The way state law is written is a little bit complicated. That 40, if you look at the SSD budget, it was approximately 57 million last year. If you add the fire department into that budget, it's a bigger increase than if it was added to the M&O budget. So you got that. And then on top of that is the state makes you count, although we're not, even if you don't increase the millage rate, the state makes you count the increase in the digest for reassessments into that number. So the gross digest number is a lot bigger than what our actual 2 mil increase is. If you understand that logic.
Okay, Mike, if I can help.
Oh, go.
Pretty
What was
please?
what was the-
Because that made no sense to me.
Okay, what was the millage rate? What is the millage rate if we kept it exactly the same?
About 4.5 mils.
4.5 mils,
Yeah.
okay. They said we had to roll it back how much?
What was that rollback rate, Linda? I don't have that with me.
Was it much? We only had 3% growth
Yeah.
in SSD.
Okay, but how much would the rollback have been, so we can show her what he's trying to say?
4.364. And then we added 2 mills.
So the rollback was
Okay.
4.364, and we're increasing it by 2?
So the increase would have been like a 1.4.
Yeah.
But the state, okay. The state has this crazy law that, in all their wisdom, and I normally touch on this every year, and in all their wisdom to look really good rather than cutting yours and our income taxes on the state level, they pass laws to make themselves look really good on the local levels. So if we do not roll back the millage rate to offset whatever the increase in the tax digest was, they make us advertise that we've increased your taxes. Now, we live in Chatham County, and if you filed your Stevens Day bill, your value did not increase. So you would be getting taxed exactly what you were the year before. The way our digest increases in Chatham County is from all of the new growth. The absolute, it takes all of the new growth, and that's how we get the increase. So that shouldn't apply to Chatham County. But their proposal, if that's law wasn't in effect, would be a 1 point, whatever, 3, 1 point,
1.3.
1.38.
2.138.
that's with the rollback.
With the rollback.
Calculated in, so it would be still the 2.
But Linda's giving it to you. It's 1 point what?
The rollback rate, if it's 4.364, it would have been 0.138 that would have been advertised. And that would have been, what, a 3% growth. But since we added the 2 on there, 2 mills, now we're at 48.99. But, that
anyway,
doesn't take
it's-
into
it's-
account the fees that
Like
we're
you
not
heard me say
collecting.
earlier, I'm not
Yeah.
supporting it anyway, but it's, the silly state laws makes it look even worse than it is. And it's, in my opinion, bad enough without them piling on. I mean, it's not good to start with.
Mr. Chairman, can I chime in?
All right, wait a minute, is he through?
Are you finished, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Wiley.
Ms. Belanger?
Belanger, yes.
Belanger, excuse me. So I know we just threw a whole lot of government talk and.
And I'm taking all these
and
numbers,
jargon.
and I'm going to go back and do some more research on it, because I actually do understand a little bit about state law, but go ahead.
Okay, cool. So bottom line is your property value, whatever the county's property values go up, that is an increase in the digest. So when you hear the manager say to account for the increase in the digest, that is how much property values have gone up. So if your home is worth $100,000, you pay taxes on $40,000. If the property value went up to $200,000, you're gonna pay taxes on $80,000. Because when you pay taxes, you're paying 40% of the appraised value, if you will, right? So what the manager is saying is that the percentage increase that you're seeing is including the digest increase as well as our millage increase. So if property values did not increase, then it wouldn't look at like 40%, it would be less. However, bottom line is still 40-something%. And so I get the frustration. But to answer your question, because your question just helped me understand, is you're asking why is it such a big jump?
Yes, because
Yeah.
my fire bill for the previous year that I now learn I can come back to Chatham County and say, hey, what's going on? Because I had a bill of $350. Next year it was $450. This past year I just paid $600. So I don't understand how it's incorporated in the, yes, sir.
For 24, 25?
Yes, sir.
Who sent you that bill?
We didn't do it.
Well-
We didn't send you that bill. So,
Okay.
and to kind of dig deeper, and you might want to look.
We'll find out a little.
Yeah, I'm
I
looking
have my
forward to it.
records. We have our records.
That's great.
But it just seems part of what we were told, what was explained was when Chatham County absorbed SSD as part of a tax, we would be paying that. Great, I got that part. But now we've got an additional 49% increase, which somehow equates to 2 mills. And my math doesn't work that way. That's me.
Right.
Okay, that's totally me. But now to be told that there are additional SSD bills that we paid that weren't incorporated into the tax, plus we had a tax bill, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, well, I think there's some misunderstanding there. So one, again, the 40% does not equate to the 2 mills, right? The 40% is the 2 mills plus a digest increase. First of all. Second of all, Mr. Manager, how much did we dip into reserves to kind of float this whole situation when it came to the fire?
We had to make up this.
Yeah.
It's almost $8 million, right?
Well, we covered, because of the impending lawsuit and other issues, the current fiscal year, we funded the fire department totally out of reserve. So nobody got, this current fiscal year, nobody got a fire bill. We
Right.
funded out of reserves. For next fiscal year, the 2 mil increase only netted about $14 million. The fire department budget is about $21 million.
All right, so with that, first of all, my colleague mentioned these beautiful plaques that our finance department has earned. And part of that is because we've made it a practice of maintaining a pretty decent reserve. And so we've dipped into that reserve, so we've got to get back to there because if you haven't been watching the news, it's hurricane season, and we might not have the support that we've had from the feds, and we might have to dip into reserves again, right? Another thing that was mentioned was indirect cost allocation. And if you look at our budget booklet, which should be available online, our indirect costs that, like you talked about, you heard that the Special Service District was sending money to the M&O, and my colleague mentioned that at one point it was over $4 million. And I may be wrong, and Linda, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I saw is that it's down to $192,000. Am I missing something? Is that wrong? Yeah.
Yeah, we pretty much have taken that out.
Okay, so,
Across all funds.
so it should be zero.
I don't know what the 196 would be.
Yeah, so in the budget book, it shows $192,000. And so, you've heard a lot, and that's probably what could be quite confusing. But at the end of the day, again, bottom line is that we have to have fire service. We have to be prepared for everything that's coming for us. And we have done a lot to try to cut down of what's going out of the SSD into the M&O. I represent a large part of the unincorporated as well, so I definitely understand the challenges there. But due to the hurdles that were just mentioned, we weren't able to do as good as we would have liked to. So it is my sincere hope that perhaps next year, in a couple of years, we'll be able to talk about a rollback. But up until then, we've got to do what we've got to do.
That never happens, but I appreciate the
Well, that's
thought.
not true, ma'am. Ms. Balanger, we did a rollback.
2 years
was it
ago.
2 years ago. So that does
I
happen.
understand that, and now we're redoing it. I get it. I understand. I've lived I've lived in several states where this is just a one-time fee. And when it's paid
Well,
off.
I'm not saying that.
I understand
This
you're
is
not
a
saying that.
tax.
This is a tax. I understand that. I appreciate it. I came to learn. I've got notes that I'm gonna take back. and deal with my accountant husband, who can explain it probably better than you all have done so. And I appreciate it. I think what you all are saying is good, and we appreciate that you're doing it. It is just a huge number to digest, especially when you add in the other two what appear to be taxes. The general operates of 3.36%, and I don't know what that equates to in terms of mill, and then the CAT, which is another 3.48. Again, I don't know what that equates to in terms of mills. So it's different languages, but that big number that just jumps out at you.
Me too. Me too.
But it just jumps out at you.
Right.
48.9%. Holy smokes. No pun intended there for, this is the fire department, but by golly, that's a lot.
Commissioner?
This may
Well, I
help if
understand
staff could help me out here. I pulled up Ms. Belanger's tax statement from last year, and her special services millage was 2.2506.
That's a half a year.
Okay. So,
That's the May bill you're looking at, I think, yeah. So it's like the half of the millage rate.
Yeah, because the
okay,
tax bill
you're
goes
right,
out in
you're
two.
right, you're right. But, so, her billed amount for half a year was $247.20. So, half of that would be
No, you-
$121. And if that's half of it, it's going up $242 roughly. Am I correct in saying that?
Um,
Yes.
To
I'm pretty
simplify
close.
it, you're looking at a half-year bill, so.
Right, I doubled it.
Okay, so if you double that amount,
It'd be 242.
that would be what she would have paid ordinarily.
Correct.
And
So
now we have
two-
two more mills, so you probably need to
Half.
take the
Right.
half a year by three, maybe.
And what was your, what was
Yeah.
your, fire
600
fee?
She said 600 last time.
Right. So I think you're gonna be in the 81% of where it came down.
Yeah, you might.
To the tune of like $400
No,
savings.
not,
Plus I want you to
If
do,
that really happens, I
right.
will be thrilled.
Plus I want you to do
I'm
this
just
stuff.
saying,
you
look
will.
at the numbers.
Plus I want you to do this for us, all right?
Yes, sir.
That last fire bill that you paid, that was 600 or something?
Yes, sir.
Would you get that to us? Because we need to look at that. Because, Right.
We'll be,
right,
Yeah.
see, and that's where I am. If you paid for 24 and 25, all right, nobody should have been paying.
Well, that's what we thought, but okay.
All right,
I will
but-
do that.
Yeah, please
I will
get that
get
to
this.
us so we can find out where that is, because, is that company you used to use, are they still sending out bills?
okay, what we can do, ma'am, if you want to give us your contact information, I have a very
You got it.
smart young man in the back of the room that can compute your bill for you.
Yeah, that would be
I will
Okay.
provide the documentation.
it on
your-
I
Please,
promise-
please,
I promise you, we've got all the records.
You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right?
If you would just write your email or phone number down over there,
Right.
that'd be great. We'll
So,
help you out.
so we can get
Okay?
to, we can get to the bottom. of it. And now, let me say this to everybody who's listening throughout the, if you have, somebody sent you a fire bill, it was not Chatham County, so don't pay it. Please turn it in to us. I'm talking about if you've got one from, July of last year?
None of them went
When,
out.
when we, when,
We
if,
had that Lifeline company, is that the name? But we didn't send any bills out.
that's what I'm getting to though. But if anybody has a bill that we didn't send it, but we don't know if somebody else didn't scam us, and the only way we would know is folks like herself send us, all right, that information so that we can track that down. Because there are some people, in fact, I spoke to, and I told you, I spoke to the attorney, Andre, and there were some folks who were saying that they had fire bills at their house, and I told them, no, don't pay that. Bring it. In fact, I was at Burnside Island's meeting the other night. And I told the mayor and the folks in Burnside, all right, they were talking about having to pay I call them South Side, so I don't get them mixed up. They were Chatham, whatever, all right? I told them whatever bill they had, don't pay that. But come to the manager and bring those documents so that we can get to the bottom of that, okay? Because there are no fire bills that went out, all right? None
Appreciate that.
went out from Chatham County, okay? And so don't pay Southside Fire, formerly Chatham Fire. Don't pay them because you may not get your money back from them. So I asked them, everybody on Burnside who was at the meeting, don't pay any fire bills that you've got, and if they call it a fire fee, don't pay that. But let our attorney and those have the documentation so that we can get to the bottom of that, all right? And I implore you to do the same thing. Get that documentation to us, they got your thing, and then.
And please let
Alan
us
and
know
those
if you
will go.
save money.
Yeah,
That would be
I was gonna say,
wonderful to know.
promise us you'll come back and tell
If
us.
we save money, I promise you I'll let you
Please
know.
let us know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we
That
interested in
gave me
knowing.
a lot of hope hearing that.
Okay,
Miss
all right.
Benson can calculate it.
So it looks like, what?
Yeah, so with this property alone, let me pull up my email real quick. Your first year fire fee bill was FY '23. So the fiscal year and the calendar years where we get confused.
Of course it is.
$700 was your first fee. That was our very first time the county took over the fee. And then we switched models to the per square foot model. It went to $576.60, I think, change. You're increasing your tax this year from 4.5 to a 5 or 6.5 is $219 from last year.
So you'll do better.
Yeah, so yours is gonna be.
So you're
less.
gonna save some money,
Yeah,
Mr.
Yeah, yours
Manager.
gonna be
That'd
less.
be awesome.
You in that
Wow.
81%.
That would be good.
Yes.
You in the 81%.
But we also pay.
So
Okay.
you're gonna save $300 basically?
Yes,
Yeah,
Awesome.
most fees go down by almost half.
right,
That's awesome.
Noise.
yeah. All right, did we get all you? Okay, who's next, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Russell Randolph?
Okay, would you do
Well,
this?
let's get his
Would you do
address,
that
too.
for Russell before
Right,
he starts?
I'm not gonna let-
Please, give him that
I'm
same
not
service.
gonna, I'm not gonna let him pick on you, Mr. Russell.
That's all right.
Go ahead,
I've been
state
picked
your
on
name
all
and
my
address.
life. I'm a second son,
All
not
right,
the
go ahead and
first.
state your name and address.
My name is Milton Russell Randolph. I'm at 15 Lanyard Court, Savannah, Georgia. I've been here about 10 years. And I've learned a lot already about the process, and I'm coming away with the takeaway that this does have a positive effect from where we had been previously paying our fire fees to the independent fire company, okay? What I'd like to do, though, is if I could make a suggestion, in communications, if you could have a standard home with a standard value, however we're assessing this, and put out what the effect would be, what just as we just did, as far as the net, okay, cost to an individual as far as fire fees previously versus the tax impact.
Great
Okay,
idea.
I think that would really help out, because when I got the email that said 48.9%, that was astronomical. And it turns out that it is only connected with the servicing fees, and that when you take the whole picture, what we paid in the past versus what we're paying now, there's actually a positive effect. So I want to thank you all for the great job that you're doing. And that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All of us appreciate you. Next, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Robert Lilly?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Robert Lilly. I live at 9 Riding Lane. I've been here about 5 years. And my concern is right now is with the fair market values that are lighting up the internet, because everyone is, as you know as well as I do. My neighborhood it's a nice neighborhood. We have no $1 million homes. It's just ordinary homes. And right now, if you drive down there, a block to a block and a half from our house, you'll find 5 houses that are for sale. So the appraiser had to see that And if he did a little digging, he'd find out that all of them have dropped their price, and some of them have been on the market for quite a while. The last two that sold have been on the market for over 7 months. And a little frame of reference, back in 2022, my appraisal, fair market appraisal, was $470,000. The next year, it went up by $84,000. This year, it's up by $63,000. It sounds to me like something is not, most of us have had a situation where we've had an appraisal and didn't like it, and we got a consultant, somebody else to come in, and we got a new assessment. And I think there's something problem where he can drive down the street and see all these houses for sale and suddenly decide that my house has gone up by $63,000 this year.
Can
I don't understand it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Do you have your homestead exemption filed on that house?
Pardon?
Do you have the homestead exemption?
Stevens Day.
Stevens Day
Yes.
bill and homestead exemption?
Yes.
Okay, well, they're just keeping your value current for their records, but they're only taxing you on the amount that it was appraised back when you filed it. So you said you've been there, how many years?
5.
5, so whatever you paid, whatever it was back 5 years ago is what you're getting taxed on, not whatever they're showing as the actual value.
Believe it or not, I'm really talking for more people than me. I was not really coming in to complain about that. I just saw a lot of people that are being hurt by this, the assessments that they're getting now, and that's what I was concerned about. Thank you
Okay.
for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
I
Well,
appreciate that.
the state of Georgia purposely keeps them separate from us. They're their own Board of Assessors, they're their own entity, their own little group over there, and we can't influence them one way or another. So you ought to, I would definitely recommend that you file an appeal with the Board of Assessors.
Okay.
And, because they don't let us,
Yeah.
I'll carry that to other people.
that
because
kid
as I
cuts the
said,
good
a
old
lot of my
boy
neighbors
system
have
out
been
where
asking
somebody could
about
call
that.
and go reduce his. That can't happen, so.
And
yes, sir.
isn't the time for appeal still open? I don't think they close it.
It's last, I think it goes until July 15th or July 17th now. They open a special window to
For the
extend
board,
it.
Right.
at the Board of Appraisal,
Exactly.
simply because, there were 2 bills that's affecting everything that the Board of Assessors did. House Bill 581, and then House Bill 92 affected everything that the appraisers did, because we even got the appraisers late. We just got it last week, or this week?
Week before last.
Week before last? All right, so what I, as Commissioner Kicklighter says, valuing the property, we don't have anything to do with that. I'm like you, all
Gotcha.
right? I have my home I live in, all right? My value went up at my home from $318,000 now to over $465,000. But the house that I bought next door and renovated, it's at $715,000. I know something's wrong,
Yeah.
okay? So I'm going to the Board of, going to the appraiser, to the Board of Assessors, all right, to check all that out. And I think you need to do the same thing. Now, understand this as you go, though. They have a standard there's a state standard that they have to meet to appraise homes, right?
Yeah.
And when they go through that, that's why that appeal process is done. And we won't get their report until sometime way later, August or September sometime, when they will come over here and I need to sign off on all that. But my suggestion to you now is to get with the Board of Assessors to reevaluate your property.
Board of Equalization.
Board of Equalization, all right?
Board of
The
Equalization.
Board of Equalization, yes. Can we get that written for him and give it to him and give the address and the phone number? Can we pull that up while we're here? And maybe one of the clerks in the back could get, but if we can get that to him so that he'll know where to go. Are they still over in the Lukakas building too?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's where the Lukakas building is on Oberthorpe and Jefferson, okay? And I think you have to, when you go in, one of the guards have to take you up. They go up to, no, they go through the first floor
No, I
door,
think-
don't they?
We'll have to, I think they've moved. I need to,
Okay, but let's get him that information so that he needs to go to them, all right, to take and ask them the question you're asking us. Because the state doesn't allow us to have anything to do. We just have to receive their reports, and then as a citizen, though, you have the right to appeal, all right,
Got it.
that whole process.
Yep. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay,
Gentlemen.
thank you. Next.
that's it, Mr. Chairman.
That's it? All right. Well, I hope like I have, I'm tell you, there's an old saying that my grandmom used to say. She said, boy, every day you're gonna learn something. That's it. All right? So that's why you're a lifelong learner. So I'm telling you all, by you coming and expressing to us your thoughts and your ideas and your feelings about things, we're learning just like you're learning, okay? But just rest assured that this Board of Commissioners, we try to look at everything there is to make sure that we can get you the best bang for your bucks, because in the end of the day, all the monies we lose belong to you. It's your tax monies that we use to provide those services. And to give you a snapshot of what is before this board, when I first started out as your chairman in 2021, there were 33 essential services that we had to provide. Now it's up to 46, all right? And so we're getting crunched too with services that we have to come up with, but the state legislators haven't put no money in the pot to help us do anything with, all right? So thank you all for coming. Let me have a motion to adjourn.
You got to close the public hearing.
I am closing the public hearing.
Motion to close the
Motion
public
close-
hearing.
Isn't that what I said?
No, you said adjournment.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Close the public hearing. Got a motion, got a second? All those in favor, please, cast your votes. Got everybody? Yes. All right? Now let me have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Properly motion is second that we adjourn. Are you ready for the question? Please cast your votes. Again, to all the citizens who came, thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, you got food in the bag.
All right, that's for the commissioners now.